Om Kali. Jai Ma.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah. I need a simple Kali Puja book. Like always. Hmm?
Should be on
A Facebooky thingy. You're good. You always leave it right on the page. Oh, the microphone on?
Yeah, it should be.
Up,
Try it out. Try it
thank you. Of course, it's a small grab right now, but way in the cheap seats. Can you still hear me?
It's recording, right?
It's recording, yeah. I think so. Hope so. This is recording. This will be. Okay. Jai Ma. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvararma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankarachara Madhamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Shri Hari. So last week, what did we talk about? Establish, that's right, a small, simple topic of establishing the deity within the conch. So I mean, we've gotten quite a bit. We're actually, we're almost towards the end of the puja. It's interesting because the actual puja takes a few minutes, actually. Is it like, it's like, there's all this preparation. And it's not just, the ritual is mostly preparation before you actually, we invoke Ma, and then we worship her. I mean, elaborate pujas, there's lots of offerings, you can, but ultimately then it's like, oh, wonderful, you've come, right? So we wash your feet, give you some give you some flowers, maybe present you with some nice clothes and get you a nice dinner, and oh, thank you. Something's flickering. Can you see what this one is? Yeah, this is a problem. Hopefully it's not too dark. There's a problem with these lights. They're very nice lights, but they're beginning to falter. Huh? It's okay? Okay. All right.
You're just in the shadows. You're in the shadowy figure.
Yeah, it's good. So, but that only takes a few, that's only, like on an Amavasya puja, that part of the actual worship of Ma Kali, officially, I don't know, takes 20 minutes or something like that, maybe. But the other 2.5 hours is all the build-up. But it's not just those 2.5 hours of build up, or in the daily puja and at the hour of build up for the 10, 15 minutes, right? It's weeks of build up. It's all the preparation. You prepare, and then, then it's the thing. So that we've gone quite a bit of preparation. All the internal purification, external purification, purifying the sea, purifying the invoking protective deities, purifying the atmosphere. Step by step, deeper and deeper, more subtle, and then finally we get to pranayama and bhuta shuddhi. Bhuta shuddhi was a major, very important part. And bhuta shuddhi, if it goes well, if what we're trying to make happen or imagine happen, visualize happening happens, right? Then you should be like in union with the absolute ground of being, Shiva and Shakti in absolute union, full awakening Kundalini, gushing Amrita down, feeding all the different chakras and all the 64 billion devatas. It's like so that should be enough, right? But then that's not enough. Then there's a separation between the two become one, then become two, but with knowledge of their oneness and the play of duality. So that's really, and so that should be, in one sense, for a yogi, a tantric yogi, that's puja. Like if they can do that, that's what they're trying to do when they're like trying to do the things they do when they do the things they do, For puja, but that's actually, it's interesting that seems to be the ultimate goal of yoga, tantric yoga. That's right, Kundalini and all that type of stuff, right? But it's actually the foundation for puja. That's actually, from there you can start puja. Actually, the real puja starts after bhuta shuddhi, the real process of puja. I was looking today. I should know. It's not a hard mantra, and I do know it, but I don't remember it. I know it, but I don't remember what I know. Like a lot of us know things we don't remember. Remember things we don't know, so that's a problem. But it's becoming, they're there somewhere. Theoretically, I know it, but I know the verse. By you said I should know it, and it's not. It's like 4-line word mantra. Maybe somebody here may know it, but it's when you'll find it in lots of tantric books on tantra, that only a devata can worship a devata. Only the goddess can worship the goddess. Only God can worship. It's devata something devata puja, and it has the word devata twice. That's all I can remember. And I was like looking, I don't know where in my notes which book it would be in, and then I'm looking online. It's like Deva, everything about Deva shows up, or only God can worship God, and it has all this stuff against idol worship in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't even know the right word to put in, because it'd be nice. It's an important verse, because actually a lot of it's based upon this idea that only divine can worship divine, only Ma can worship Ma, and so in one sense we're not Ma. We're not God. In one sense we are, but not in the sense that we normally think. So what? How do we? We have to become purified. We have to invoke the divine. We have to become identified with the divine, and through bhuta shuddhi is kind of one of the penultimate culminations almost of it. And if it works, then you're literally absorbed in the divine, right? And then you separate it with this knowledge. And so then when you separate, after bhuta shuddhi and the mind comes back down, individual is imagined to be separated from the absolute again. Kundalini is separated from Shiva, and the Shastra again. And you feel some sense of an individual existence, but it's not the same individual, right? You've in a very realistic way been destroyed. You've been purified. The koshas, your bhuta, what is it, the little angry guy, Papa Purusha has been destroyed. Remember the little man of sin that lives in our, all the processes we've done to get that in order to do it. And so in one sense that's hopefully there's not much left. There's a residue, the habit, to use language we've been thinking about recently. The habit of individuality is still there, right? But the reality of individuality has been changed, right? It's Ma playing all the parts. It's Ma separating. It's, after union, with that knowledge of union, you're now two, seemingly two, but you're not two. And so in that world, in that purified world, purified body, where the elements and the chakras and the nadis and the psychological principles all the way up have been purified, right? Purified by the blissful reaction of union, not just like scrubbing and cleaning. We clean pots and pans like we do beforehand. That's all part of it too. But this is like the deepest level, right? Then in that vessel, she can take her seat to do the puja, because we can't. Only a devata can worship a devata. Only God can worship God. Only Ma can worship God. Only a deity can worship a deity. So the Tantra says in a verse I don't remember. So this is the process of that. So then what do we do? Right after Bhuta Shuddhi, what did we do? We did the Jiva Nyasa, they call it, right? Jiva Nyasa, also called prana Nyasa, where we Om Ring Krang Yang Lang Mang Shang Shang. We do a whole series of secret mantras. Sorry, secret. Anyway, for educational purposes only. Unauthorized use of these mantras will have actually no effect, so that's okay. Or very little effect. They require authorization. So then what's with that? We're invoking may Ma's mind be seated here. May her senses be here. May her I'll tell you exactly, because they're building on this. I think I lost it. It's too far back. Jivaiha stitaha, may her soul be, her individuality be here. Praniha pranaha, may her pranas be manifested here. Savendriyani, right? May all of her senses and sense organs and be present here. Then man manas chakshustra, may her mind, may her senses, may her intellect, may her, so all these, may her fully come in and reside here. So that's actually, this is called the prana nyasa or jiva nyasa. Establishing of the jiva, the nyasa. Remember we've defined this. A lot of this talks have been about nyasa. Nyasa means to consecrate something, to leave something, right, and to sacretize. The word leave, make sacred. Sanctify. Thank you. I knew the word was there. Sanctify something, right? So what you're invoking, your place. Nyasa means to place, right? It also means to leave, right? That's what we something like sannyasa means to leave everything, right? And sannyas, right? To give everything, or also means to consecrate everything. Everything is full. It has both of these meanings of consecration and placement and leaving. So what are we placing here? We're sanctifying our soul, jivanyasa. We're also invoking or placing another soul, which is really the soul of our soul. It's Dakshina Kalika Devata Prani. May that divine goddess Dakshina Kali be present here. May her senses be here. You're placing her soul. But it's actually, what's the difference between her soul and your soul, right? There's some difference and not much difference, both, right? So at a certain level, so that's jivanasa. Then we create a body for her through a system called matrikanyasa, right? In elaborate pujas, matrikanyasa, there's karanyasa. We talked about things already, but I'm building upon it. Karanyasa and anganyasa. Karanyasa is when you place syllables or mantras on your fingers, representing the limbs of the body also, and the chakras, the elements that the fingers are connected to. And anganyasa are the limbs of the body, right? That's a common thing. But this is done with the alphabets. But the larger matrikanyasa is, I don't know if we actually did we talk about the different elements in each chakra? I don't think we may have skipped because it's not in the normal books that are published. But it actually starts with like the different vowels in the 16 petals here. The different different sections each chakra has a syllable, right? That's how it works, And so you're purifying each syllable, worshiping, purifying, like this, In the longer puja, sometimes it's just the mantra. Sometimes it's connected with the bead mantra. You make like where it's connected with the bead mantra in for Kali Puja, cream. So cream, cream, chum, cream, chum, tum, cream, tum, cream, tum, pum, cream, pum. There's different ways of doing it we talked about Samputita, where you fence a mantra to do things to purify it in certain ways. We talked about also I think the talk called Purification of Mantra is one of the series. I think it's under that title. That goes into what makes mantras impure and what has to be purified. Like, how is a mantra impure? Mantras are impure by 6 causes. You can look it up. A 2-hour long, complicated talk. But so that's along with the matra. The full matrika nyasa starts with in the chakras, in the petals of the chakras, right? And then all over the body, amnaman, ina, uno, rina. There's all over the whole body is seen to be made up of the alphabet, right? Our kind of spinal system of the chakras. You can think of the astral spinal system of the chakra, the superstructure of our imagined chakras with the petals, jayama, with the imagined petals. Those are made of mantra, and then the fleshy part that's on it is also made of mantras. All these. I don't know if we talked about it. I was looking at it. I don't think we got a chance to talk about it. I don't have it in front of me. I kind of remember them. We don't do them all the time. We do them in Amavasha, right? And then they're done in reverse. That's another thing. They're done one way and done in reverse because the alphabet springs from Ma as she expresses, and it's withdrawn. It withdraws into Ma and comes back out of Ma. You say we come up the spine, come down the spine. That's why this Matrikanyasa is done forward and backward. Then Anganyasa, Karanyasa, Anganyasa, like this, right? So what are we doing? We're creating. We mentioned this mantra last week. There's a mantra in the Lakshmastakam, right? What is it? Siddhi, the most famous is Siddhi Buddhi Pradedevi, Bhukti Mukti Pradayini. Siddhi Buddhi Pradedevi. You give all perfection. You give intelligence to the divine mother, right? Then it says Mantra Murti Sada Devi. That's the line. And your form is made always of mantra, or your form is made of all the mantras. It can be both ways, right? Your real form is always mantra, or your form is made of all the mantras. So we're creating a structure. First, the skeleton through the chakras, then the fleshy part of the body through mantras, through the syllables of the alphabet, right? And then on the fingers and anganyasa like that. So we're creating a form for it. Because now what happened in Bhuta Shuddhi, we burned our physical body, at least imagined it. We've burned our astral body that it's built upon, that imagined it, So we have to build. So when a soul is invoked into a human being, what begins first, there's a spinal column that forms, and then first there's some, and then slowly the organs come, and you get to, you build, the body gets built, right? So we install, as soon as you install in this new empty purified vessel, the seed of the mantra, of this secret mantra that invokes the prana-pratishtan, the jivanyasa mantra, then you have to start building her with the letters of the alphabet, especially matrikanyasa, right? So that's we Bhuta Shuddhi, Jivanyasa, Matrikanyasa, Anganyasa, Karanyasa, like this, right? And then there was a break and we worship all the deities. We did all those other pujas, right? There's a bunch of stuff that's done. But it doesn't have to, in our puja, then we worship Ganesh, we worship the sun, and then we worship Guru and Ganesha and Surya and Narayan and Vishnu and Shiva and Durga. And for us, Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Vivekananda, all the devatas, all the forms of all the forms of Vishnu, all the planets. We start worshiping, right? And then in that environment, in that holy company, in that purified environment, then let's go back to where we left off, right? After installing her, what do? Then we did the Dhyan mantra. We meditated on her form. We spent 3 weeks on her Dhyan, 3 or 4 weeks on her Dhyan mantra, Dakshina Dhyana, or whatever the deity being worshipped, right? For us, it's here Kali. Right, and then last week we did 2 weeks ago the Manasa Puja, the internal or mental worship. That's because she's here. She's not just. She's here too, but not yet. Right? She's here. She's always here, but not yet until we do this. Now she's here in a very specific way. So we worship her. We do all the internal worship, right? The mental worship with aspects of our very being. We mentioned 4 or 5 different ways of doing Manasa Puja. Then the verse that I quoted last time from Shakta Nanda Tarangini Tantra says, after seeing the Ishadevata in one's heart, one should establish her in the image, picture, vessel, or yantra, and then worship her, O Parameshwari. Right? This is an important line. This is like a line. First, worshiping her in the heart, Then we now how to establish her in the picture, the image, the yantra, or the container, the ghat, and we mentioned, spent a lot of time talking about the ghat last time, or the murti, right? So that's the next step. The way we do the way we fulfill this is first what we did last week. We establish her in the water conch, the shank, Visheshargya Stapana, they call it, right? The establishing the special Argya Stapana, the way of invoking, which not exact literal translation, but it means the part is we're invoking the goddess in the conch, right? Like with all the, then we establish what do we do? Just like when we did our Bhuta Shuti, and like that we Ida, Pingala, Supranayama, Kundalini, visualization. So we do the same thing. We've purified our nadis, invoked Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna, and then invoked her within the heart. So now we do the same thing in the water. We invoke. Remember, the stand was fire, I think. The conch was sun, I think, right? And then the water is moon. That one I remember, right? So we establish her Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna, right? And then invoke the holy rivers, which are also the streams of the nadis, and then Gachaya, Tishu, we mentioned how to install her, sit, comes, very beautiful, right? So, and we mentioned that the worship of the goddess is often worshipped in the water pot. That's important. And so the conch is a certain sense of that too. But then the question, which I was thinking of this afternoon, kind of thinking of what I'm going to speak tonight. Why do we have to, we worship her within, and then we worship her in the image? Why another step where we worship her in the conch, right? So in one sense, water, this is perhaps a little bit on the pseudoscience type of perspective. It's like water holds vibration. That's a fact, right? The problem is that there's been really fascinating and deceptive movies about how water changes, and books, the hidden message of water and like this. And the problem is that the principle's very fascinating, how water takes the shape of vibration and thought and sound like that, right? The problem is what the books and the movies and the thing that come of it are from extremely selected, it's like, just see, I said the mantra for the sun, the Japanese sun mantra is the famous one, the Japanese sun mantra, and look at the picture, when we froze the water, look at this beautiful rising sun, but they never show the 98,000 other things that didn't look like that. That's the problem. It's not good research science, right? But the principle, I think, is still interesting, and that's a belief principle also, is that water holds vibration, right? There's something like that. You can charge water. You go to why is the Ganga different? If you go to you go to Rameshwaram, there's 22 tanks. Each tank is different. Right, the water, the Shakti is different. There's something. There's different bacteria, and we're getting sick in a different way from each water. It could be like a skeptic can say like that. And I also said, the people of the church at the Rameshwara temple, they do stuff to the water so everybody thinks they're different waters. The same water. They add more salt. This one they add more this so that people think they're. I've heard that too. That might be. So people think, it's 22 different feels, right? It's like maybe I don't. That's a cynical. Likely behavior also if you get people if one of the revenue streams of a temple is people bathing in your tanks, but they do feel different, and you feel Ganga bath is different than a regular bath, right? And you sip water, this holy water, this tirtha that's bathes shalagram, bathes shivalingams, that's maybe it's just our faith, but I think it's more than faith. Something water has the thing, right? And in that message of water and what the bleep do we know and all those type of movies that came from it, right? That's what I think that's what it was called, right? Right? It was like so good and so bad, but anyways, I'll get over it. It could have been so good and it was so bad. Maybe I should word it that way. It was fun though. Is that the idea that it changed, that the vibrations seem to change? We believe this, but the problem is that we can believe it and we can subtly state it as a spiritually revealed fact like that. But the problem is when you start saying, no, modern science is proven. Modern science has very moderately hinted perhaps at it. That's all I think that we can properly say, right? So that's the problem with this. But anyways, you charge water holds, belief is, subtle, the tantric belief is that water holds vibration more than most things, right? And so when you charge it, you're you're charging it, and therefore it becomes, in a certain sense, a medium for the transfer of Shakti, right? Just like we charge the Kalasham. But actually, in today's talk is loosely on this prana-pratishtan, or the invoking life in the image, in a full proper like temple consecration, right? When a deity is installed for the first time, like our deity was first installed, or you go to a prana, they're installing deities, right? Usually it's many day program, many hours for sure, many days likely, so many different rituals. But one of which they call it the kumbhabhishek, right? Or abhishekim and kumbhabhishek, and it's two things. So what they do, or a kalash abhishek. So they're doing this whole thing to install these different water pots, usually a main water pot of the main deity, or different water pots of, like, there'd be 12 water pots for the 12 forms of Shiva, right? Or 9 water pots for the Navadurgas, and each one's worship. We did a thing for Sri Chakra in years ago at Sargam's house, Sargam and Suman's house up north, right? And part of it, we had like 27 kalashams, like we had to, each one was charged with hundreds of mantras. But then what happens, all those get poured and bathed onto the main deity, or the yanta we were trying to install, right? Which is behind the crystal Shiva Lingam behind me with the Sri Chakra on it, the one we were trying to install. You charge the water, and then the water gets bathed, then the deity gets bathed with that water. And believe that's one of the ways that life goes into the deity, through the abhishekam, right? We have above, if you look where Ma is, she's on a beautiful throne. I'll tell you some of the esoteric things. She's on a beautiful, this Betty, this black throne was made by the revered Swami Atma Gyanananda, Stuart Maharaj at the Tribuka Monastery. He's now running the Washington, D.C. Center, wonderful Swami. So he built it for us, and then the white shrine is from the Hare Krishna temple we got from Bada Haridas years ago. Right, it used to be Radha Krishna were on that shrine for many, their home shrine for many years, right? But anyway, so between this shrine and Ma, there is a Sri Yantra. She sits on a carved yantra from Madurai, I believe, carved by like that. So she sits on a yantra, and she sits on a throne. And above her, of course, there's a dome where there's another. She sits between two Sri Yantras, exactly in the middle, positioned directly above her, right? And if you go above that, you see above, you can't really see, there's a triangle. It was, the original design was supposed to be taller. Our builders didn't make it tall enough, so you're supposed to be able to see it. That was the design. But it's a little bit, it's like a pyramid, but it was supposed to be enough so you could actually see that there's a top piece, a shikara type thing, right? And then above that, there's, externally, it's made to look like, what do they call it, cupola, because our esoteric tantric temple is appearing in the humble guise of a cottage home in Orange, in Laguna Beach, a Laguna Beach cottage home, right. So it has a beautiful cupola, but that cupola is encrusted with yantra, stained glass yantras, right. But above it, and it's made, the top piece is made of copper, right. So that's it's copper for the sun, right. There's a meaning for this, and above that there's another. They call them the shikaras or shikas. It's like, we have a sika. I don't, but it's there inside. He still has, the top. This is the top of the head. This is not the top of the head. This is the top of the head, right? Astrally, right? And so the temple's body also has a sika, right? And just like our sika is meant to be, it's a power point, the topmost point, and a power point where the three parts of the skull come together. There's like a weak, a baby has a little soft. It takes a while there's a little. Their head's still not hard. You can kind of feel it, There's a place that's believed that this is a place where energy transfer. This is where things come through. That's why we put an antenna there in a certain sense. Hair absorbs vibration. There's another science finally proved that hair absorbs vibration. I'm not going to make that a statement, but Hindus firmly believe that hair absorbs vibration. We can make that statement with full certainty. So the sika above, and so that's within that. Ours has a trishul. Usually for a devi, it's just a flag or a point, right? For a Shiva temple, there'll be a trishul. In the Vishnu temple, there'll be a chakra. Mm-hmm. If you look above the temple, there's always a chakra or like that, right? Ours has a Shiva trishul because that's what came to us, like that. And it's within. There's another, like a set of 3 pots, right? These are just like we have a pot of water. These are pots of grains. Right, the grains also, just like grains like water is believed to hold vibrations, right? When you at weddings, you hold and you pronounce your blessings and you throw them on cursing the groom and I mean blessing the the groom and to a happy life, right? Or we chain mantras and we throw them into the fire, right? We do all kinds of stuff with rice. Rice is believed to hold vibrations, right? Why also yogis are really careful about grains. This is something that hasn't been incorporated so much in the Western yoga tradition, but in Indian yoga tradition, actually, who cooks your grains is more important than anything. Anything you eat, but not grains, right? Like here, we're very liberal. People bring rice. We offer. Ma, you eat if you want to eat. You can eat, right? But at Dakshineshwar, they may beat you up if you try to offer rice at the temple. You bring sweets. You can bring what's a milk sweet? I'm listening. Sandesh, or you bring things like you bring fruit like that. These are milk sweets and things like that. But something made of rice, no, that has to be cooked separately by strict rules by Brahmins who have bathed in clean pots where no crows looked at them. It's like all without the earshot of a dog, whatever the rules are, right? Because that's it. Rice holds vibration, and that you can't bring something impure. Milk is pure, right? Sweet is pure as far as vibrationally, right? It doesn't hold the thing, so it's considered a sattvic thing. Rice is not sattvic. Rice absorbs whatever guna, right? It's that's why in a lot of traditional homes they give you rice, and even super pure, super vegetarian, super medical, offered food like that, and then they come and bring you ghee. Right, you want ghee on your rice? It's like reason why is that? Oh, because the rice is impure without ghee. The rice, even pure cooked rice, including like that, without a drop of ghee. I can quote. I can look it up in somewhere in volume 1 of this book. Right, there's a quote that's like, it's the same as eating dog meat. It's not the same as eating dog meat, right? Dog meat's way worse than rice not cooked with ghee, right? But what's that meaning is that these are the tantras use very dramatic language to get their points across, Right? It's not subtle style of the convention's not subtle, but meaning that. But the point is, it's not considered clean, right? And so rice, because rice absorbs vibration, you have to be really careful. So anyways, the pots above the temple, they're filled with various types of grains, 9 grains for the 9 planets, but rice is a primary thing. And then those during when Ma was installed, Ma was already installed. When we first came back in officially, what was that day? It was Snan Yatra Day, right? That was the day when Ma Bhavatarini was installed. We chose that day. The temple wasn't exactly finished yet, but it was well enough for us to. Mom moved in. She was living in my trailer for a while, right? Thank you. You heard my cough. Thank you. Very thoughtful. Should I do it? Proof. The real test. I told you whether it should be left into a temple or not. Is how you drink. At the entrance of the Jagannath temple, give them a metal glass of water and see how they drink. If they pour it in their mouth, they should be able to come. If not, they're not Hindus and kick them out. That's the real test of Hinduism is how you drink a glass of water. Also deals with purity. These are all about purity. So we went up on that day, on an auspicious day, when we did the Kumbhabhishekan, where we did Abhishekan. So we did all these pujas to charge holy waters. With Ma's presence and Navaga's presence and the Panchadevata's presence and the holy rivers and Tirtha's presence like that. And then we climbed up and we bathed those pots, right? It's a way of infusing with the intentionality. The rice there is meant to hold the sankalpa of the temple, what the purpose of this stapana is meant. So you charge it into the rice, right? And then let's believe that this is like an antenna in a certain sense, that's radiating that or holding that or pinning down your intention, sankalpa of the temple. I don't know how we got to the Sika. Oh, the water. We're talking about the conch, I think, right? Right. So part of it is when you charge the water, then you bathe the deity. That water goes into the deity, right? The prana gets given. And so I asked. Now I'm going way back to what I originally started this part of the conversation. I asked one pujari named Narayan. He used to be a pujari at the Badrikashram temple in Northern California, Swami Bhajanananda Saraswati. And I was talking about pujaring because he was a very good pujari. And he knew English, So I was like, why do you do like? Why do you have to install like do installation of life every puja when you have an installed deity, right? Why is this? Why it seemed to be during an installation? I can imagine you do it, then you pour. It's part of the infusing the deity with all these powers and shaktis and like that. But why daily do it? People come in like that. And I remember his answer. I was remembering it this morning. He says, "So just like you take a bath every day, right? So you offer life every day." Like was his answer. It's like one of the daily offerings. It's like you wave incense every day. You offer flowers every day. Also, you offer prana every day. Prana-pratishtan is a daily offering, right? And I was kind of joking to myself, like I come in the morning, right, and I'm awake, I'm alive, right, but they got to give me coffee, right, because I'm not really awake. You have to wake up, right? So part of it is maybe the waking up, the jagaratam, sujagaratam, wake up. This is a part of the science of it, So it's done the intermediate state between inside deity to projection into the worshiping in the image is there's a medium in between giving into the water. But in this particular case, because Ma is already installed, from that water, what do we do at the end? We said we sprinkled everything. We sprinkle Ma, we sprinkle everything, including ourselves and whoever we can reach, right? That Ma's blessings and presence and prana and life, caffeine, appropriate levels of caffeine to everybody. Wake up, purify to wake up. Amritam kuru, may everything be nectar. We mentioned this is how we ended last week. And that water we'll use in puja, right? We'll continue to use it. We won't then offer at an appropriate point. We use that to bathe her, right? That's her main bathing water, right? So that's an important. We'll still use it, but not. It's consecrated water. But part of the installation of the deity, the daily installation of the deity, is first installing the conch, right? As a medium. And then that water will be used in the puja itself. Just like the arghya, we make an arghya for the conch. That arghya will be used when we offer the arghya and we put it on our head. We get there. We mentioned that last week also. So, small introduction, but yes, tell me.
As far as awakening her again every time, every day, I was told it's because you can't expect her to stay around.
No, that's true. No, there's one thing as a part of actually, this is something we don't exactly do. We invoke her, but we don't release her, right? In home, really supposed to invoke and then release, right? Since we don't, I don't know, it's not on our puja, but it may be by design. Maybe we didn't want to let her go. You have to stay here. It could be that. Like we're joking because like a lot of people worship the deity with shoes. Like in front of Krishna, there's a set of shoes. Even like that. But she said, no, we don't give shoes to our deity, she said. Then they'll walk away. This is our thing. We have to, they're there, we'll make everything, no, they won't go anywhere. It's uncomfortable. They have to stay there. It may be a bhavaka, but actually there's something where you withdraw. Like when you do a fire ceremony, you invoke the deity and then you withdraw, right? Because you walk away from that, right? But the thing here, you don't walk away from Ma. We leave, the puja's done, but all day long people are coming to see Ma and worshiping her. Or in the evening, people are bowing to her. It's not like it's not just usually for the time of the puja, you invoke and then withdraw. But there's never an opportunity for us to withdraw. We only invoke, but don't withdraw in the daily puja for Ma. Right? But there's mantras like that, may she, there's beautiful translations of those. They have meaning, these mantras. That may you be satisfied with our worship. May you come back. May you go back to your abode in the top. There's one mantra that I remember in it. Maybe in Sanskrit it may come to me. I kind of know it. May you, after this puja, may you go with great happiness back with Lord Shiva on the top of Mount Meru, right? Until we invoke you again, until we call you, until next time we invoke you to worship. May you abide blissfully on Mount Meru, right? So that's there's things like that. There's mantras like that, right? That's invoke. So we have to. But that's in general you do invoke and then you withdraw. That's generally what you do. In a yantra you do like you invoke and then you withdraw. Very often. And home pujas also, we go to somebody's house, we establish the kalasham, we invoke, we do the puja, and then at a certain point, very disappointing, very heart-wrenching, you have to okay, now it's time for the puja to end. What do? You move it, because when the kalasham, it's a whole science. Like this whole science of how she's from the base to the above to the point of Trishul above on the outside of the building, right? If you move it, then the stapana, she's no longer established. She can move. So when that happens, then it's purified water. Is it working? Okay. Is it okay? It's purified, but it's no longer. I can't say it's no longer her. Everything's her, and it's always her. It was her before that also, but it's not her in that way. Same with when if you ever seen here, we can't do it because our fire pit is established. It's fixed, right? But we do it out here when we have the metal pit. And if you ever saw Haridanji do puja, at a certain point when he withdraws, there's a thing where you withdraw the prana. There's a mudra, another secret mudra, when you bring the prana back into the heart from the fire and you inhale it again. It's like it comes back like that. But still, that's our thing. What he will do, he'll usually with his hand, he'll just like sorry, I'm going to hit the microphone, but he'll like hit the thing and move the homokund. As soon as it's moved, then it's broken, right? Then it's prashat. It's like vibhuti. It's purified fire. The leaves are beautiful. I mean, the ashes are like that, but the deity is not there. Of course, the deity is there, but it's not in that way. When you establish it, if you move it, we're not so because actually a lot of deities when they're not moved. When they're installed, they're cemented in, right? Because when they're installed, they're never moved again. And so, for the type of deity you have to move, you have another set of deities. They're called Utsav Murtis. They're usually small. Like we have our Utsav Murti, the small Kali next to Sri Ramakrishna statue, right? That's our Utsav Murti, right? So you can move her, you can put her into the bowl and bathe her. You can take her on procession. You can do something like that without moving like that, but. When Ma was installed, our Ma Dakshineshwari was installed, it was installed at a rented hall, right? Not in our established temple, right? So it was a rent. So she was installed as a movable deity, although we shouldn't move her, right? Shouldn't move her unnecessarily. She gets moved when she's being redressed, and there's situations where we're doing work like that. We don't move her unnecessarily, and then we do things to reestablish kind of her energies like that. But usually so she's installed as a movable deity, not as otherwise you'd never move her. Like when at Dakshineshwar, her beautiful silver throne, everything, her throne was damaged after 150 years. It's damaged, right? And so they had to fix it. They had to replace it. Very difficult because they can't move her, right? And not only that, only the priest can touch the shrine, right? And so after the temple would be closed in the evening, all the priests who worked all day would be back in the shrine, working with the shrine while the cement layers are laying without touching anything. It was like a very complicated thing. How to replace it without touching her and without moving her. They couldn't just like, let's move her, rebuild it, and put her on her. They couldn't do. There are ways to do that, but that would require, as per tradition, many, many days of reinstallation, right? And there's a tricky thing because there's a language, you have to be careful because in the language of installing deities in a temple, there's rituals to install. These rituals were also done here, right? But we're not installing her. In one sense, you install. Some temples you can hire a priest or get a priest or and do all the rituals. And if it works properly, it works. Ma's there, or the deity's there, right? And at a certain point, you may have to withdraw the energy. To work. Did you tell me some temple? No, somebody was telling me that you were telling me that Bhagavan Nityananda's temple, that they needed to gold plate him or something, right? So they withdrew the Shakti, right? Gold plated him, and then the priest it's like there's a ritual, but we have to be careful because we don't think like this at Kali because she came on her own. Right, and it's not like the rules is after the prana of the deity in a metal deity will last 300 years. So in 300 years, she has to be reinstalled. She's here, she's being worshipped. It's like it's not in some pujas you're inviting her. We believe this is a miraculous type of thing. It's like this is Ma's grace. Like the Dakshineshwar although it was planned and all the pujas were done, Ma came there. And she. So they're not those type of rituals. As far as I know, they're not doing these reinstallation rituals every 25 years or whatever some Orthodox temple were doing. And she's the most living temple I've ever seen. The most living deity I've ever seen. So I think so. We have to the language you have to be. There's a ritual science to it, but it's really it's a mystery of grace. Ma can come. we create a scene and then she comes and sits down, perhaps. And then hopefully she doesn't leave. We don't offend her and she doesn't leave. She gets rid of us before she leaves. That's our prayer. Get rid of us before you leave. Don't leave. Sometimes they leave. We've seen that. Seems to be. People are. The management. So then all of a sudden there's nothing. It doesn't feel like anything there. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to make sense of it. Right. But anyways. So the process. Now we've established the conch. Now we invoke the process. Now we have to do a quick repeat of some of the nyasas, right? So first, again, there is a dhyanam. Again, the internal meditation. The dhyan sloka, the description is done a second time. The full long one like we did, that can be done again. That's how that's the books will say to do it like that. But there's many other beautiful dhyan slokas that are not contradictory. Right, and so in our puja book, in our daily puja, we don't repeat the long dhyana a second time. We do it like in our small book. There's a short dhyana mantra that's given as a precursor to many texts. So I'll recite that one as an example. Okay. Om Megangim Bhagatambaram Shivashiva Rudham Trinitram Param Karnalamba Nrimunda Yugma Bhainam Mundra Srajam Bhishanam Vamadhora Karambujam Narashiraha Kadgamcha Savetare Dhanambiti Vimukta Keshinichayam Vande Sarakalikam. This is a very famous one. It's found also in the Tantra Sada, like the long Dhyan Kalin, but it's also found in other texts also. I'll just give it. It's just a shorter form. It doesn't give all the cool tantric details, but But you realize it's the same Dakshina Kali. The main thing is just another form of Dakshina Kali. And a small book we gave it because it's simple Kali Puja, not super long complicated Kali Puja. That's the next volume. Super long complicated Kali Puja is coming hopefully soon. So it says we meditate eternally. Vande Sara Kalikam. We meditate always upon the auspicious Kali. Dark as a storm cloud, enclosed in infinite space. Shiva lies beneath her feet like a corpse. With 3 eyes, she is supreme, frightening and awesome to behold. She is decorated with earrings and a garland of skulls. She holds a sword in her upper left hand, a human head in her lower left hand, and assures fearlessness and offers boons with suppose of her upper and lower right hands. Her hair is long and disheveled. Right, so it's just a quick image. So we have to re-visualize her again, either through the dhyan. If you saw Haridan, he'd do the long comment to do the same mantra a second time, the long Kali dhyan. There's another. When we were talking about the Kali dhyan mantra, we mentioned another version of another rendition, another dhyan mantra on Dakshina Kali from the Kali Kastakam, Swami Bhajanananda's favorite. And it's very, very beautiful. The first 3 verses, I think. 3 verses of a not well named Ashtakam, because it's like 9, 10, 11, 12. It's like 12 verses or 13 verses, and none of them add up to 9. No, but anyway, that's and attributed to Shankara. That we're joking that Shankara is so miraculous that even 1,000 years after he died, he can write beautiful hymns on Mother Kali. That's one of those type of things, but it's a beautiful, very important hymn. That shows you the glory of Adi Shankara. I don't doubt it at all. And so you chant the first 3. Do you know it by heart? The first 3. I'll give it my best shot. But this is one we've been using because we just love the mantra. Right? It's beautiful. It's another version, a little more esoteric and tantric images than the one I just read, but it's summarizing more visually the Kalika Dhyanam that's the long one. Galarakta Mundavali Kanta Malla Mahagora Rava Sudamstra Karalaha Ivastra Smashana Laya Muktakeshim Mahakala Kama Kolakalikeyam. Something like that. Pujevama Yugme Shirosim Tadhana Param Daksha Yugme Payam Vaitataevaha Sumandya Pitunga Stanabhara Namraha Lasharakta Shrika Tvayasu Smitasyaha Shava Dvanvakarna Vatamsa Sukeshi Lashapreta Panim Prayuktaika Kanchihi Shavakara Munchari Rudha Shivabhish Chatudikshu Sabdhya Yamana Bireje, something like that. It's newly added to our book, so I'm not accustomed to chanting it. The other ones I know mostly by heart. I'm still learning this one. And the meter is very beautiful when chanted properly. It's exquisitely beautiful. It says, around her neck hangs a garland of severed heads, dripping blood. She opens her mouth wide, giving a great dreadful sound and revealing her beautiful teeth. Naked, dwell in the cremation ground with freshly flowing hair. Kali is in sexual union with Mahakala. Her left hand holds sword and severed head. Her right hand grants boons and fearlessness. She is bent at the waist by the weight of her mountain-like breasts. The corners of her glistening, blood-stained lips form a sweet smile. Her 2 earrings are corpses, her hair beautiful. The gleaming hands of demons tied together form her girdle. She eagerly ascends her throne of corpses and sits upon Shiva as the 4 directions fill with the sounds of her jackals. So this is a very dramatic, reminds us of the beautiful nature. Of course, we've gone line by line in the long Dhyan, Kali Dhyan, all those points are there. So I'm not going to give a class again on these points. But it's a very beautiful, but the Dakshina Kali is, of course, the benign Kali, the Kali worshipped by householders, the Kali worshipped in homes, the Kali worshipped in temples, right? But it's Kali, it's not Lakshmi, it's not Saraswati, it's still Kali. The image is still Kali, right? And so you hold a flower and you chant this mantra and meditating on this form, in the long form or the shortened form. Even without mantra, it can just be by meditation, but usually it's some as a mantra, right? Sometimes many flowers are held, not just one flower. And sometimes there's another mudra. What's this mudra called? Trikoni mudra, I think. Trikoni mudra. This is another mudra. And actually in the tantras, it mentions this particular mudra. It's a version, it's like a cross between this and Yoni mudra. It's a particular thing. But it's a combination of the 3, it connects 3 Shaktis. Right, and sometimes what you do, you put 3 flowers, the 3 colors of the 3 gunas, right? A yellow, a white, and a red in the center. And then I forget which one. There's a science to it. Here you hold a white flower. Here you hold a yellow flower. Here you hold a red flower, right? And so you have them in union and them in separated. And then you chant the mantra, and then these flowers become the bed of the deity being transferred from within your heart, through your prana, through your breath, to the image, yantra, ghat, statue, picture, whatever you're worshiping, right? So, and by doing that, your 3 Shaktis are being merged. That's why it's very symbolic. It's a union of 3 Shaktis. That's what this yantra means, right? Or it can just be done holding a flower. It's the same. It's amount to the same thing. Some of the tantras, the Tri Vidyas and this way, but in many other tantras, it mentions this mudra, and making a bed of flowers, or holding a flower or a bed of flowers, right? This becomes her, when you're transferring from within to without. What's the medium? This flower becomes the medium, or bed of flowers becomes the medium, right? The softest thing, right? And so when this is done, you meditate on her. So you chant the mantra with the flower in Kurma mudra or Trikoni mudra, and then you have to, just like we did in Bhuta Shuddhi, we're gonna do it just in a few seconds. There, it doesn't take. You don't have to go. Imagine the Kundalini rising from chakra to chakra, because it's already there. The gate's already open, right? Nothing's been closed down, right? In the puja. So you imagine Ma again shooting up and shooting up and union with Shiva at the top of the head. In this in the image of union of Shiva and Shakti in this blissful union, right? That blissful image and Shakti of union, that is then brought down into the heart. Right, that's what it's like that in the most blissful, ecstatic bhav, right? And that then you plug without breaking the mudra or the flowers or whatever you're doing. These are cool secret things which I can't do on. Either we have our back towards everything they're done, but it's you closing one nostril, the left nostril, you exhale through the right nostril. Some books will like to say, "Oh, you inhale." Right, and I think, but actually, and I've seen, but we learned to exhale, and we've asked people who say the books like that. There's actually it's exhale, right? I think it's inhale because the idea that our breath is considered unclean. So you breathe on something is one of the things that makes food unclean. That's why we bring the food covered. Not just people don't see, nobody breathes on it, nobody spits on it, breath, Breath is if you feel somebody breathe on you, it's kind of a weird, yeah, it's creepy. It's like even somebody coughing, it's like you feel that breath is not we brush our teeth and do everything, but the breath is not a pure thing, right? And therefore it's considered, so I think, in my opinion, and I've talked to people about this, that the texts say they never really exact how it's transferred, right? But it's actually through exhale, because it's you're breathing your breath into it, but it's not a regular breath. It's a highly purified breath through a fragrant flower. So it mitigates any impurity of our lungs and that type of stuff. The vibrational, and chemical or type thing, right? And then this flower, right, or either in Kama Mudra or in this mudra, is then transferred and placed either at the feet of the deity, right, on the head of the deity. It's like something like sometimes or in the center of a yantra, right? That however it's the idea that it's being now transferred, right? And there's different ways like that. But the tantra is mentioned. There's verses that you have to be very careful when this happens, until the flower is where it's supposed to be, where you're establishing the prana at the feet of the deity or the head of the deity, like that. Then you have to be very careful how you put it down. You don't just like put it down, or break or take. You're doing like that and doing like that. If you break the mudra or you put it down, then it's gone. It doesn't happen, right? And it's interesting. Maybe it's the same idea as like you move the fire pit, or it breaks that breaks the connection. But the scripture says, the tantra says, that there is yakinis and dakinis and apsaras and gandhar. There's astral beings that are thrilled by what just has happened. This wonderful thing has happened, right? This glorious evoking of Shakti, this Amrita from the union of Shiva and Shakti is being made available outside, right? And if you establish it, they'll be just like we're all here because that Shakti's here. We all come here, but they all here and stay here. We all these divine beings to stay here, right? But why all the divines stay here? Because Ma's here, and they keep coming back. Ma's here, so you keep coming back. If Ma wasn't here, you'd come one time and leave, right? Or if you took Ma, you'd come back, you'd take Ma and leave. That's the other thing, wouldn't have to come back. So that's what they do. If you put it down and it's not established, it's like, great, wonderful, thank you. And they take it and happily steal the prana and the amrita and go dissipate it in their own way. Now we can think this must have some deep psychological, but that's the meditation, that it by placing it very carefully, and then usually when we place it, you actually, while you place it, you kind of switch to stay here. Ya parami kuru, may this be thing, and you sprinkle water with the bij mantra. There's different things to establish there. Now here we can't, put it on Ma. I can't reach Ma's feet, and I can't reach Ma's head. So remember we mentioned the water pot is none different from her, the kalasham, right? So we establish it on the kalasham or on the yantra, whatever we're worshiping. Like usually the kalasham is a standard one like we do here, right? We do like that, and we put, and then paramikuru. Right now she's been from within, has been placed outside. Now that's quite a cool thing, right? So how does that happen? What just happened? Did anything just happen? Right? This is an interesting question as modern people for us to answer. Right? Ancients knew it happened. Right? It happened. Right? We have so there's different ways you can think about. There's even some cool books quotes I can find here, maybe on prana-pratishtan. Om Kali. So I'll read a quote from Gandharva Tantra. Next, after performing pranayama, the sadhaka should take handfuls of flowers. The Devi should never be invoked without handfuls of flowers. It should be done through flowers, right? Right. The sadhaka who has controlled his prana will meditate on Parameshwari as directed, as described in his heart, and seen by her grace, the image and substance of which is consciousness in his heart. Let him think of the identity between the image manifested within and the image without. Next, the energy, the word here is tejas, interesting. The energy of consciousness within should be taken without by means of the vayu bija, with the breath along the nostrils, and infused into the handful of flowers. Thus, issuing with the breath, the devata enters into the flowers. The sadhaka then should then establish the devata in the image or yantra by touching it with those flowers. So long as the work of establishing the Devi in the outer image or yantra is not accomplished, the sadhaka should continue to hold those flowers of meditation in his hand. This is where we're talking, this is the verse actually. If he does not hold them, Gandharvas avail themselves of the opportunity to worship the Devi inside the flowery yantra. And even if the sadhaka thereafter establishes divinity in the image, yantra and the like, by contact with those flowers, he will not reap the results of that worship. The result goes to the apsaras and Gandharvas, right? For this reason, the sadhaka should, after drawing her into the flowery yantra by means of the Trikanda mudra, this is specifically mentioned, this mudra, take the mother of the world, who is all brilliance and forceful energy, right, out of the flowery yantra by the force of the invoking mantra, and place her within the pitta, the altar, and general name for images, pujas, and place her into the pitta. End quote. This is a long quote, right? So exactly, so these things are not made up. These are, well, they may have been made up, but they're made up not by us. We can't say they're not made up. We don't know how they came, right? But they're long established in Tantra Shastra, and so actually, as we mentioned, as the mantra is exhaled, right? It's done with the mental invocation of it says Vayu Bija. This is Yam, right? Yam is for air. Right, volume means air. So because that's the medium of just like the medium for what we use when we turn something to amrita. Okay, vam, it's water. It's amrita. Water is a medium for amrita. So air is a medium for prana. So yam is the closest we can get to. Air is not prana, but it's a good. It's like the wave is not in the ocean, right? But a wave is a great symbol of the ocean, the great medium to understand the ocean, to touch the ocean, right? So similarly, air is not prana, but it's a pretty close, a transparent medium for prana. So we can understand prana by using. So sometimes vayu is used interchangeably with prana, even though they're not remotely the same thing. But they are remotely the same thing, but not actually the same thing. So similar, that's very interesting how the process is done, right? So it's interesting. There's a mantra. Sometimes there's verses that just like we should meditate on this one line. It's just an interesting thing. Sarvam sarvatmikam. This is an easy thing to sarvam sarvatmikam, right? So sarvam sarvatmikam means everything is the essence of everything else. Everything is everything. We sometimes joke everything means everything. I remember teaching puja. I was going to Sri Ram, Sadhananda's brother. It was his birthday a few days ago, I think. I missed him when he came to visit, but he one time said, "So Guruji, so everything is everything?" Yes, that's exactly it. You're getting the essence of this whole thing. But this is the shastric source, right? Sarvam sarvatmikam, right? Everything is the essence of the soul of everything else, right? So there's a lot of this is based upon identity, or recognizes identity between the self and the deity, between the deity and the mantra, between the mantra and the universe. Actually, I may have written this down. There's a term in the Mantra Yoga Samhita. This is an important late tantric text, but it mentions that there's it mentions for daily puja 2 types of nyasa are important: karanyasa, anganyasa. For special puja, 4 types is anganyasa, karanyasa, rishinyasa, matrikanyasa. There's all these different like that. But actually it mentions 7 nyasas, right? And so these are jivanyasa, that's when we install the deity. Matrikanyasa, of the syllables of the alphabet. Rishinyasa, this is the deity, the rishi, the meter, all that type of stuff. Karanyasa, the hands. Anganyasa, the limbs. And Pitanyasa, we did that also, where you establish the deities of the shrine in the heart, and then the shrine of the heart and externally, right? But then it mentions another thing very interesting. It says Maha Shabda Nyasa. Maha Shabda Nyasa. This is another this is in Sri Vidya. This is one of the methods in Sri Vidya also of the which is a very sophisticated orthodox tantra, but it's true. This is how to say to get us. Not identity is like, oh, I become Kali. You have to be careful not to do I'm Krishna or I'm Kali. That's ridiculous. You're not, it's like, which is irresponsible. Like people say, like, oh, my mother's beautiful and you're ugly. She's like completely knocks it down. Somebody says, oh, I'm Krishna. You're not Krishna. Krishna's way cooler than you. Like the ego saying I'm Kali, I'm Shiva is a ridiculous statement, right? And self-condemned. Even Sri Ramakrishna, even saying Aham Brahmasmi in this age is unclean. It's unhealthy. What's the word he uses? Unwholesome. Right? Why? Because we're actually, when we say I, we don't mean Brahman. We don't even mean anything close to. We mean me. Swami Bhajanananda, right? And Swami Bhajanananda, that's a spiritual name. It's not my old name. No, that's a name where I'm important and spiritual and authorized and better than you. Whatever it's like our I. We mean the body. We mean not even the body. We mean like our bodily identifications and our likes and dislikes. And it's like so we have to be careful. Even Aham Brahmasmi is not safe. Right, for the ego to say, but I am Kali, I am Ishvara, I am God is really dangerous to say, right? So that's not what's meant by this identity. But we're not that. There's only Kali, there's only her. She's playing all the parts, including us. And in puja, very intimate, she's playing two parts of the worshipper and the worshipped, right? So we have to see that and get out of the way, let the ego part get out of the way, and let what's really happen in its beauty without interruption, right? So it says this is done by. So this Maha. Sabda Nyasa, it's a 6-point Nyasa. It's an interesting identity. In Sri, when we do our Sri Chakra Puja, we do a version of it, right? It's called Devata Bhava. So this is the purpose of it is Devata Bhava, to have the mood that Ma's doing, or that there's only Ma, or to identify with the deity. I mean, we're Ma at the essential form, to identify the oneness, experiential oneness of with the deity, right? Only the goddess can worship the goddess. Only the devata can worship the devata, right? So these are first is prapancha. The nyasa is done with prapancha. So prapancha, what's prapancha? Prapancha in Buddhist, prapancha means like false. It means false and like imaginary. Oh, you're dreaming. You're imagining. You're daydreaming. You're stupid dreaming. Not named daydream. It's like false thinking. That's prapancha. But prapancha also means the world. This world of make-believe, because the world we live in is not the real world. Even if I'm not saying there's not a real world, but we're not living in the real world. We're making our own little made-up versions of it, by our own likes and dislikes and a tiny bit of information through imperfect senses and interpreted and projected and and reinforced. But like we live, whatever this world is, it's the fake world, right? But the thing is, this fake world of make-believe is also only her. It's only consciousness, right? It's only her playing the part. So we have to see that as her, right? Then bhuvana, the earth is her, right? The solid earth is her, right? Murti, the image is her, right? Mantra, the mantra is her. Daivata, here the deity means like the goddess, the big God, not just I worship. We're not worshiping image. We're worshiping God, right? Where it's like so that God is her, and matrika and the syllables, the syllables are her, right? So it's continuously identifying, like an example in a certain forms of nyasa, in these very elaborate nyasas that are done, is like you say, you establish the one shakti within the heart, and this is the anahata chakra. Anahata chakra is connected with the wind and the space element and Ma's head. I'm not going to remember, right? So it's like and a particular point in the yantra, so you're continuously making these connections and identifying, because everything is the essence of everything. Everything is everything else. But if you begin to see it, pretty soon she's not a statue, right? She is a statue, but she's also the goddess. She's also the self. She's also Brahman. She's everything, right? And also, who are we to worship her? I mean, we can't worship her. How can the finite know the infinite, right? But we're not the finite. We're also her, right? This is the whole science of this, how to identity, without ego in a certain sense, beyond the ego. Sarvam sarvatmikam. It's a simple line, but it's the essence of what's going on. So, oh my god, 10 minutes. What happened? That's the thing. I said that the ancient world knew what happens, and we have a harder time understanding what happens, right? So one thing you could say, and we ourselves sometimes describe it, sometimes a little apologetically. We want to look too primitive or too superstitious or too magical, and so we give it's what really is like. Sometimes we think it's what's installed and what's withdrawn, right? And these are not false statements. There is incomplete statements, right? There are ways one thing we say that our attention is installed, right? Because Ma's always here. Of course, in the temple, Ma's always here, but Ma's always everywhere. But for the purpose of the puja, we're seeing her here during now, from the beginning of the puja to the end of the puja, right? And then we let it go. We withdraw. Otherwise, we'd never leave. We thought Ma was always here, we'd never leave this place, right? Right? But we do. We withdraw her. So that's one thing. That what do we establish? We're now thinking this is Ma, this is God, this is where I'm seeing, I'm feeling, I'm worship like that, right? So that's one thing that could be installed is your attention, and therefore your prana, your attention, your life, your force, your focus, right? And so I think that is one of the things that happened. That's not an incorrect statement, right? I think if I start reading Arthur Avalon's pithy, sarcastic defense of prana-pratishtan, we'll get too late. We can cover a little bit next week. But I could suggest reading Arthur Avalon's pithy, sarcastic defense of image worship against modern, Western ideologies, But it's very good. But anyways, so I can't get into that. I don't have the time to get into that before RT. But another thing could be said, she's always here, but she's manifested. Not that we're installing. No, we're inviting her. She's manifested means that she was subtly there, hidden, but now she's become manifested. And the example, there's Upanishadic statements like fire is everywhere, right? But by rubbing things together, it gets hot, and then you manifest it as fire, right? So that's another way. Here, Ma is manifested, right? But she's here all the time. She was here before you manifested her. If I can light something on fire, is because the potential for that is already here. The Shakti, the potential, one of the definitions of Shakti, is already there. And therefore I'm bringing it. So the fact that we can light a giant fire in a temple or in your home puja or in your own heart, she's already there. But through the process of mantra and meditation and pranayama and all these complicated steps or simple steps, right? You can what's unseen becomes seen. What's unmanifested becomes manifested. That's also a very good description, I think, right? Another thing, this is also given in the Tantras, and Arthur Avalon is one of the things he John Woodruff he uses, is he says, in modern times, you can't say that she actually comes, right? Because she's a statue. It's made of earth, right? So to say that it's no longer a statue, and that's now the goddess, right? That's like against some law of nature. You can't just change something's nature. And so he rejects this and using some verses from the scriptures, rejects it. He rejects it he says like the nature of water is cool, right? Water by itself, it's natural. I mean, of course, this is from one angle of vision, right? But you heat it, what happens? By fire, it becomes hot, right? So you didn't change its quality. You didn't change its nature, right? You within nature itself, the fire can overpower its water's coolness, right? To use a more dramatic, Srila Prabhupada uses this term of like iron. Iron is hot, black, and cold. These are like its main gunas, right? But if you put an iron in fire long enough, it becomes white or red hot, and soft, right? So it's changed its nature. Something else fire overwhelmed. It's within nature for something to overwhelm something else's nature and change its nature. Doesn't like that, right? So he says that the stone or the earth or the picture of the yantra, its nature of stone is overwhelmed by mantra, right? Just like fire changes, it becomes hot, water becomes hot, or iron becomes red, right? So stone becomes consciousness, stone becomes devata, right? So because otherwise, why would you? And if stone was stone symbolically, then there's no need to do all these rites. Just worship Ma as stone as a symbol, right? No need for all these pujas, right? The pujas do something. This is the idea. This is this argument. The pujas do something to the stone and makes it no longer stone, but consciousness, but devata, right? It overwhelms one quality by another quality. And so that's, can we do that? Can we do that with mantras and prana and flowers and cool mudras? That's what we hope. That's the science. That's actually the science of Tantra. Science of Tantra is, you could almost say it's almost like alchemical or something. You're changing something's nature, not by miracle, by science, by application of principles to make something different. Interesting. That's another very strong, I think, a very brilliant description, right? And so I think all those are also true, right? This is also one of the things happens. And so there's, and so you some people that come, oh, this is a very powerful temple. They can feel, right? Even people who don't know anything about temples or don't know about model, there's something, you know, especially in a really sacred place, and you know, it's like it's, you know, there is something that happens, right? Sri Ramakrishna in the opening second conversation was M, his one of the, you know, where he felt his ego crushed, that conversation, right? So one of these, so M, he says, well, what should you like, God with form, without form? Then he smashed them like that. But then he says, but then M, he says, I put forth and I argued a little bit, right? That was thank God, the first and last argument with Sri Ramakrishna. I've been arguing with Sri Ramakrishna 40 years, but M's ego was easier to crush. I'm still arguing with him, fighting with him, but he wins every time. But we're still not done. We made a career of it. That's the problem. Arguing and debating with these points, right? But M, he says, yeah, but when people worship an image, right? He starts like this, right? He says they should be told that they're not worshiping the image. They should think of God when bowing to the image, and not think that the image is God, right? And that makes sense, you know. We shouldn't, you know, like. But Sri Ramakrishna was not appreciative of his, like, that's your Calcutta, the fad of you Calcutta people, always lecturing, never thinking never thinking anybody could correct you. Nobody's to tell you anything, but you're always giving lectures and correcting, bringing other people to light, not asking them, do you have any light? Then he keeps going. He says, what did he say? It's a weird example that in the Gospel, Nikolananda kind of changed in order to make the point. But it's like you have no room in your bed, and you're inviting your friends to sleep in it, right? You know, it's like you don't know anything, and you want other people, that type. It's a weird Bengali example, but that's one of the things, you know. And M starts and then M thinks, well, actually he's right. I don't know anything, right? Do I know anything about the nature of Ma and God and deity worship and all that to be able to? I mean, what he says appeals to me. That was another crush, may have been the final crush. I'm not sure of his ego. Interesting, the final crush was wrong view of deity worship. Not just first, you know, like that's Ramakrishna's opening things about. And what did he say? He says, oh, that the people be shown that it's not earthen, muddy, mud, right? It's not. They shouldn't worship. Muddy shouldn't be worshipped. That was M's worship. That was his statement, right? And then Swamiji was here. He would tell you, because he's worked on these first things he worked on, the opening pages of the Katamrita. He says, why Mati Pratima, I think is like an image made of mud, right? Why Mati Pratima? He says, Chaitanya-i Mati Pratima. It's an image of consciousness, right? It's like, why say that it's like, and then he says, what? Even if it is an image of mud, why do you get your headache out of it? Other people, mom knows who they're worshiping. Right? If a child mispronounces a mother's name, the mother knows and gives all blessings, right? And if people need to progress, she'll correct you. You just shut up, right? If there's a mistake in that, Ma herself will correct the mistake. Right? You know, but the main point, why Mati Pratima, Chaitanya Pratima, Chintanyai or Chintanmai or something like that, I forget. Right? It's actually very emphasized. It's actually female, the Shakti of consciousness, right? That she's manifested. So the image is not really an image of mud anymore. It's an image of consciousness, right? It could be, it's a symbol of consciousness. That's okay. It's a way of focusing our consciousness on conscious. That's okay. You know, all these things are true, right? It's a manifestation, an obvious manifestation of all pervading. That's okay. All these are true things. But in the deity, it actually, the belief is that it actually is conscious. It is the devata, right? And it's not a miracle, right? It's just the quality, a higher energy has overcome a lower energy, right? The earthness is no longer, so it's you don't treat the image as image. There was a big, almost riots in Vrindavan about 10 years ago, right? Because some deities were broken or stolen, something happens, or by vandals like that, and so the government is trying to, like, not kind of insurance, but like, if we need to replace them, if we have something stolen, we need to find. So they needed details of the deities, the famous deities of Vrindavan, that Madan Mohan, Giri, what is the Banki Bihari, all these important temples, right? And so they needed measurements. They refused, and the temple priests refused to measure, right? But now they need. So there was it was a court mandate, right? It had to be measured, right? And I mean, there was like, you could measure the deity or be arrested. It was enforceable by, you can't say no to a court mandate. Then you have police behind that to force, like subpoena. You can't say no, right? They can be forced eventually, right? We hope we can be forced. Can be but he said no, refuse, because that's. To measure the deity is to consider it physical, and the deity is not a physical thing. It's consciousness. It's Krishna, not a statue, right? Of course, the statue can be measured. You could you could say, oh, the statue. So even in good culture, it's like, oh, how big are your deities? You say, oh, they're this big. No. You say this big, right? Because that's limiting. This is unlimiting. You can give it just they're roughly this big. Right, but like somebody, you see somebody the other, like the drinking glass out of a metal cup test, whether you're a real Hindu or not, whether you pour it or not, whether or not you say your deity your Shiva lingam this big or this big. That's whether you're a real Hindu or not, right there. Whether you think it's a statue, or whether you think it's God. Mm-hmm. Right, that's the thing. So is it this God or a statue? So then we, through Ramakrishna, he would see at nighttime that Ma wouldn't cast a shadow. Right, I've been to Dakshineshwar. I see Ma cast. To me, if she casts a shadow, it's not. But to her, he would test. She wouldn't cast a shadow, right? That he'd touch her, and she'd be soft with skin. Right? She'd what's it called? Put cotton in her nose to see if she was breathing. Right? Maybe to her she breathes. I don't see like that. But sometimes you look at it like she's different today, right? The statue hasn't been recarved since yesterday. It hasn't been repainted since yesterday, but she's different. We take pictures of how she's different, right? How is that just imagination? It's like, no, it's two pictures are different. There's an incredible, Abbot George told us about this, but he showed us pictures. There's a, Chintamani, they call it Chintamani. It's not really Chintamani stone. It's they call it's a jeweler's stone. It's touchstone. Jewelers use it to test gold. It's like a philosopher. It becomes a philosopher's stone in songs and alchemy and things like that. But it's a type of stone that you can test gold on it. You rub it and it comes out. Gold comes off, and there's a way of. But that stone is a very precious stone. That's a philosopher's stone that touches everything, turns everything to gold in the mythological type of stories, right? But there's an image in Anandamoy Ma's ashram in Benares made of this, right? It's a big Gopal image, big size, made of this touchstone, right? A jeweler will have it in their family, passed down for generations. It's very rare, right? And I don't know, it's not true, and they've painted the picture, and it's pictures like that. But there's many photographs. It's a famous image at her main temple in Benares, very famous temple, right? But every picture of that deity by itself, it's like, it's painted like our Gopal deity. You have the conch eyes, and you painted with red and white, looking straight forward. And every picture where Anandamoy Ma's in the room, the eyes are like this. Now, I don't know, maybe they painted and that's just the way they've been presented. They repainted her like that. But Abbot George says it was every picture, in Ma's presence, her Gopal's eyes are up, and when Ma's not there, Gopal's eyes are straight. I don't know if it's true. I've seen pictures that's very kind of like Like when you think of like a picture of a ghost or something, like, oh, you get kind of shocked, like, oh, kind of freaky. It was like, kind of freaky, but is it a stone out of philosopher's stone, or is it consciousness? Is the stoneness is the least real part of it, yeah. So that's another part of it. So when you're invoking, we've done all. What have you done? What have you done in daily puja? I mean, in our puja, you've awakened you've purified the tattvas, you've awakened kundalini, you've union of Shiva and Shakti, you've separated the whole thing. It's like so, and that is being invoked, right? If that works out, and so that means when a deity is installed in a temple, right? Not anybody can install a temple deity. It needs somebody who knows how to awaken, purify the tattvas, literally awaken kundalini, have union of Shiva and Shakti, and like that. That's why we're very proud. We're not egotistical. We're very proud. Oh, Ma was installed by Haridanji, head priest of Dakshineshwar. Not only is there a pedigree of Dakshineshwar connection like that, but he was a unique priest, right? There's no, I mean, I can't say that we don't know the inner hearts of priests and then like that, but he was unique. Even now, you ask people, there's no priest like him. There was no priest like him. There's no priest like him, right? Very unique and great tantric sadhaka, very wonderful, very human personality, but with divine experience and ability, right? So that what he has awakened through his whole life of sadhana, right, which he can recreate ritually daily as a priest of Dakshineshwar, right, that he can do very consciously here. And you can see, it's like I was, the last year that Pranabji came, after Haridanji passed, picking him up from the airport, he says, it's like, Pranabji, like 17 years ago, or 18, that time 19 years ago, you and Haridanji brought one small black statue, right, that's like that. And now thousands of people's lives changed. It says, including yours. And he goes, including mine, definitely mine. I can definitely say, but a statue doesn't change people's lives. Rock doesn't change people's lives. The yantra doesn't change people's lives. It's Chaitanya Pratima, the image of consciousness, the Devata. Kali changes, That's the important point. So, I guess I'll bring the final, I'll steal a few more minutes. There's, like I said, the ancient people had a better language for this, right? Like we have to it's symbolic, it's a manifestation, it's our attention, it's our prana. It's like, or is it, but could be all that, or it could actually be happening. And maybe they're not different things because the outside world is only our inside world projected in our frontal lobe, right? We have to take that consideration also, right? Maybe we're saying the same thing, a modern way of saying it, an ancient way of saying it, right? But we don't have the language for this, right? It's like we have the language of religion. Religion is out of faith. That's the language of religion, right? So we believe Ma's here, that's a simple thing, belief. Have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, they say, right? And you can see people come here and you believe they have faith that Ma's here, right? Maybe that's a language of that's modern religion. Even now in Hinduism, recast it as a faith tradition. It's like that's okay. That's the language of the day. The language of the age, perhaps. Right? But I don't think that language was used in the ancient time. It wasn't a faith-based religion. It's a different type of thing, right? And so then we're thinking that it's almost so religion is faith. Religion is okay. Religion could be the tradition of worshiping deities, worshiping the deity or worshiping deities. One definition of faith of religion. For what, right? Usually it's for our eternal good. To go to heaven, not go to hell. It could be like that. Or for material benefits or benefits in this world to get help. Right, so, or maybe even the highest to have union with the divine, right? That's the highest possible goal. So that's the language of religion, also, right? We worship to help us to invoke the blessings. To invoke blessings. That's a good language, right? We worship out of love, and out of a hope for our future, a better life in the future, right? Or ideally, spiritually, as a mysticism, out of longing for oneness and union with the soul, individual with the whole, right? Like that. But I'm not sure if this is that either. Is the problem? It's like it's not. It's like it is that. And so we've been discussing the last few days. Is I think not sure how to talk about it. Is like we don't like in Western in the Western tradition, we've bifurcated like magic and religion, right? And so magic is bad, and religion is good, right? What's the difference between magic and religion? I'm not preaching magic. I'm not going to distribute tarot cards and Ouija boards and like that. Like, but what is the difference? What's the real difference? The difference, well, like, oh, one is invoking. Well, in you know, it's like it's the same word. We've the spectrum. We've made this edge this and this edge that, and everything in between doesn't exist. Right? If it's close, it gets shoved there. It gets thrown over that. Right? So that's problem of the Western tradition. We don't have this language, and even in Hindu, it's like, oh, then it's like we like this. All we're talking about is called tantra, right? But also, oh, tantric means magician, sorcerer. Right, that evil sorcerer on top of that. And not just sorcerer, evil sorcerer. All sorcerers are evil. Everyone knows that. Nothing is a good sorcerer, no matter what the modern movies telling us. Well, sorcerer, you know, it's like, so it's an interesting. What's a sorcerer, right? A magician in the ancient world, like this is a mystic in a certain sense. You know, it's an interesting, like play. You know, so this is, you know, there's what's that term? Theurgy. That's the word I'm pronouncing that. Theurgy. Theurgy. You've heard this term? It's lost in the Western tradition also, right? Theurgy, right? It's like divine action, right? But it's also God's act and ours acts towards, and it's the ancient kind of, you could say, like, you know, like Platonists and Neoplatonists, that type of you know, that type, that it's that of by self-control, by spiritual discipline, by ritual actions, by fasting, by prayer, by ritual, one can go control inner and outer and go higher and higher to invoke or evoke a deity or God for the ultimate sense of union, right? That language is the same language of invoking for like to control and get a ghost to clean up your mess or something like that, you know. But it's for the higher, you know. It's like it's more than faith. It's more than ritual. It's more than, you know, spiritual. It's an energetic engagement with the divine, with divine principles and the divine principle for the ultimate highest spiritual enlightenment. You know, so I think that may be an interesting. That's why I'm thinking. What's the word? Something. It's not an equivalent word, but it's something. It shares some of this language. I find it anyways interesting. What is? How does the science of prana-pratishtan? It's not just symbolic. It's not just psychological, right? It's not just magical, like zap, and you're now a deity. You know, it's like, but it's its own thing. I think it's the fault of this modern age that we don't have the concepts for the words. We probably do have the words for it, but the words don't mean that anymore. We can't use these words anymore. You know. So it's hard. So the point is, it's really hard to talk about prana-pratishtan. We've been thinking about it our entire adult life, but it's very, very hard to talk about it. So I give it our best shot. Thank you for your kind attention and your patience with our discussion. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, 15 minutes late, but the crowd's not too